All right, so we spoke about this before. We brought it up briefly, and a lot of people always question us. So like about this term, we coined it HODLnomics. It's something at Digibridge where we've been establishing this with a lot of the clients that we work with, and a lot of the projects that we've been advising. Is HODLnomics. So, when it comes to holding as a collector, your team has developed awesome HODLnomics in terms of you only have around, I believe, 3% of the total supply up for sale on OpenSea currently. And so, like, for those unfamiliar with HODLnomics, it's a term that we created at DigiBridge where we basically describe the effective strategies of incentivizing people to buy and hold the NFTs. One example of what you guys do is owning like a Scabland NFT gives you access to whitelist for future collections. And so, like, you're truly building a second home in the Web3 for the NFT enthusiasts and sci-fi movie lovers. So, from your experience, is there any advice you would like to share with the aspiring project owners on how you've captured and retained your audience so far? Creating this utility and experiences around your NFTs. Because one thing I noticed personally is that you partner with certain projects for private mint opportunities. So I'd love to hear more about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I can't pretend to be an expert. We have really just tried a lot of stuff, and some of it has worked, and a lot of it hasn't. I guess what has worked, is I guess we had a somewhat unique approach to our whitelist, which we called our access list. In that we had two tiers to it. We had just the general, normal, familiar tier, which is like you can win a spot, through a raffle on Twitter, through another community, or in all the familiar ways. But then we had a additional tier called quipped, and it's fringe slang for equipped. You don't go out into the fringe if you're not quipped. And to get quipped, you had to earn 5 badges. And you earned these badges through a variety of different ways. Some were as easy as just, attending a particularly important, event, Twitter Spaces. Some required you to make a meme or color a drifter or contribute to the world building, come up with like a story based on a prompt, or references for something that exists in the fringe. And we did these challenges weekly, and it really became sort of the life of our pre-mint. And also, though, for us was just hugely educational to figure out how to successfully interact with our community and tell the stories we wanted to tell. And so much of what we learned by even just coming up with these different challenges is informing now how we're orchestrating content, post mint. But people earned these badges, and a lot of people earned their 5 badges. Oh, and by the way, getting 5 badges, getting quipped, you get a discount. You got to mint first, you got to mint 2 drifters, and you got to mint them at the lowest price. So that was the incentive. But then what was funny is what happened is after people earned 5 badges, I mean, some of them stopped, but a lot just kept going. And, our mint, of course, got delayed numerous times. So some people at the end had like 25 badges and we're just into collecting badges for badges sake. And this is how we really grew this like hardcore community. And particularly we, the market crash happened like right around when we were wanting to mint. So we kept delaying. A lot of the people that were just on our basic, whitelist access list kind of left the project or left the NFT space or just kind of didn't stay engaged. But it was the people who had earned the quip status that, like, they're the ones that minted, they're the ones that stuck with us. So that turned out to be a really important strategy. And then I think the other thing we did, because then, I mean, as I kind of mentioned, and this is kind of a whole different conversation, but like our actual people who weren't quipped, only a very small percentage, of them minted, which is not uncommon during this period right now. And to me, it even has me questioning whether we'll even do any sort of typical whitelist for our next mint. I really like our holders will get some guaranteed mints. But I think what we're going to orient our next mint around is what we did, which was also really accessible, which was offering a private window. So we had several phases to our mint. The first was, the quipped got to mint, then our regular access list got to mint. And then the third window was, no guarantees, no allotted spots, but was a private window that we offered both to people who had earned, these roles in our server, but also other communities that we just felt a like-minded, connection to. Like, I got to give a shout. I see Swagger Stallion in the audience. We absolutely love the Ascended project. They feel very kind of close to our ethos. Not to mention their art is just fucking fantastic. But they, for example, were given access to our private window, and it seemed to me that with NFTs, it's so hard to retain attention that we had like put people on an access list like months before minting, and of course they were completely disengaged by the time the project came around. Where you drop the private window in a whole bunch of discords, and it's immediate. It's like, oh, I found something cool. I have a limited opportunity to mint right away. And that's exactly what happened. We minted out during our private window before we ever got, to a public mint. And I would argue it just encouraged, because we had carefully selected the projects that received access to this private window, the people that minted happened to be really good fits, philosophically for our community.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, if you don't mind sharing, what what was the price of that mint? Because I think that's another aspect that you can touch upon a little bit too. Because speaking with a lot of projects think that you should do free mints and stuff like that. So I really wanted to engage your experience from that end.
Yeah, I mean, we were never going to be a free mint project because we had a really specific roadmap. We're also like, we're making a movie and we're thinking ahead. We want to establish a real long-term value and precedent. So we never seriously considered doing free mints. I don't like hit it. It just like, all right, I don't want to insult it. It was just like not what made sense for us. But yeah, we did lower our price. I think we hoped initially, that we would be like a 0.2 project, but it just became very clear by watching other projects in the space that wasn't realistic. So, we formed a plan around making content at, a lower price. And so like our quipped price, our lowest price was 0.08. And then our highest price for the public mint was 0.1. The private mint was like 0.95. So we kind of ended up in that territory, which allowed us to raise all the money we need to do everything we're going to do, in the Scablands. And then we got really lucky that literally the day we minted, ETH surged. So we ended up a little more healthy, than we were expecting. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you guys, I think when we entered the space, we were like, oh man, we can finance a whole movie with NFTs. And I don't think that's true anymore, at least not in the current market. But also that's okay, because like we found so many other valuable things about doing this process. I mean, previously I mentioned like we're gonna make spaceships, which is gonna be fun and awesome, and be a storytelling and just kind of content opportunity for our community. But again, we're also making spaceships that we're going to use for the film. So like the NFT project is still contributing directly to the film. But I think the biggest thing is like by forming this community, we are forming the most diehard center of our fan base, like a year before the movie ever comes out. And I mean, just to give you a little kind of like perspective as a filmmaker, that's huge. Prospect was not a sequel or a franchise. It wasn't what we call derivative IP. It was original IP. And those type of things are incredibly difficult to market. You just have to spend a lot of money to get your message out about your new thing. Where you have I mean, Marvel movies maybe not the best example, but like everybody knows what, even if you don't watch Marvel movies, you know what they are when a new one comes out. Like they have much less work to do to tell you about it. Where Prospect, our little indie movie, for one, had like no marketing budget, was an original idea. It took like 2 years to find its audience. It really wasn't till the pandemic hit and everyone was like stuck in their living rooms that Prospect really found its fan base when it went on Netflix. And so now, and I was like very involved with that marketing effort and trying to get the world out. And I just felt how difficult that was. Where now it's like we're starting way ahead of time, and we're making the world, but in a lot of ways, by making the world, we're also marketing the world, and we're trying to like launch the quote unquote Fringe franchise even ahead of time through like tabletop gaming. And we're going to like create a bunch of merch, and we're going to keep finding our fans, establish our fan base. And even if it's, you know, small, relatively speaking, to the audience you might want for a movie, it's the most fervent like fan base. These are the people that are going to be like getting their friends and family to go watch this thing. This is the people that are going to be like part of setting up events and really pushing, you know, the message out online. So this is where I think, you know, even if the NFTs can't really fully like finance the film, like they're like so incredibly valuable to the process of getting an original idea out there, that is just a huge challenge for filmmakers. And I think, you know, if projects like ours are successful, we're going to see a lot of other movies kind of start in the same manner.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was about to say, like, you know, the word of mouth that will come from when everything is is ready and is ready to roll, like it's gonna be exponential, basically, like with that core community that you already have built up right from the get-go, and it's gonna spiderweb out completely from there. So I completely agree with you on that. Richard or Steve, you want to add anything from what you just said?
Oh, sorry. Richard, you can go first if you want.
I mean, just to add on to HODLnomics, I mean, I think that's really great. You know what you've done, and just some other quick
Totally
examples.
forgot to talk about HODLnomics.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, and I think again that's really cool. Everything you've done, that's gone a long ways. Just some things, throwing it out there. Again, the old 80-20 rule. You make 80% from your top 20%, maybe the top 5 or 10% of the collection. There's something where utility can turn into like all inclusive, areas where there's random raffles, drops, things like that. The top 3-5% can have guaranteed. The other things is having unannounced snapshots. So don't let anybody know when you're going to have a snapshot, so they're not jockeying around. Also letting them know the faithful will be rewarded the longer you hold, and not list, the greater the reward. Like that's calculated in to future utility rewards. But anyways, yeah, I love again. It's a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, and real quick, I just wanted to throw in. So, me being the head of outreach and partnerships and all, I heard you mention how you connected with like-minded communities, and I thought that was very, very awesome. And personally, I even found you through Ascended. Shout out Swagger and the rest of the team at Ascended. Um, but yeah, I mean, I found you in the Fringe, through Ascended and the private mint. And when I saw that, I've read into your project, I've read into, I immersed myself into what you were building. And, it just instantly just connected with me. And, I think that's super powerful that you really had the, the demographics nailed down where you could go to a community and be like, okay, these people, they share similar values and similar core values and vision with this project. So let's try and onboard them onto ours and see if we can build a whole universe around what we're doing. And another thing they don't really do a lot of projects is maintaining these partnerships. So I've seen a lot of green lights with what you guys are building, and truly, it's really awesome, and I'm super excited to see this vision unfold throughout the long term.